Hey all you movie junkies out there, it's Twin Flicks here again, always bringing some of the best in cinema, and today is no exception with a double dose of movies for the first time on Blu-ray. But first, before we dive into that, make sure to hit that subscription button if you haven't already and help this channel grow. So the double dose of movies we have today is from Millcreek Entertainment with 1989's Dad and 1996's I'm Not Rappaport. But first we're going to focus more on Dad and take a look at Millcreek's new transfer for the Blu-ray. Now Dad is a movie I saw in '89 when I was 11 years old, and it's always stuck with me. I've always had a soft spot for this movie, and honestly guys, to this day it still can bring me to tears. One scene in particular with James Horner's terrific score, it just hits me every time. Now I haven't seen it in quite some time, and I've always been on the lookout for it for any kind of Blu-ray release, and finally it dropped on Blu-ray from Millcreek. So the Blu-ray specs for both of these movies is a new HD 1080p transfer with a new DTS 2.0 lossless stereo mix and aspect ratios of 1.85:1. Now being that Dad is a beloved film of mine, I honestly was worried at first that the movie being 31 years old, that this would be at least a decent transfer and it wasn't just poured over from a shoddy source. Well, I'm here to report that yes, this new 1080p transfer fares quite well. It's not the greatest looking transfer, but it looks really good, and overall I was impressed by it. Even with I'm Not Rappaport sharing the disc space, it feels like it has plenty of room to breathe and not mowed down by a low bitrate. The video sports stable and faithful filmic images with natural grain structure that never becomes heavy or dull or heavy bear down with digital noise from the new HD transfer. This was never a vibrant, full of color type movie, but the color palette still holds a great looking bright color palette with details being exceptionally defined across the board, along with some nice sharp texturals from interior shots of rooms, the family home, grocery stores, and the New York cityscape. Now the only issue I noticed is the video does show the occasional print speckle or some minute debris, but other than that, I saw no real damage to speak of, and the compression rate looks very decent. But now we're going to get into the audio. How does it sound? Well, as I said, Dad is released with a DTS 2.0 lossless stereo mix, which is very sufficient. The track offers some great ambient stretches in the supermarket early in the film, and then when it goes to the New York City scenes, it sounds really nice with some depth and clarity. And also in the hospital, it has plenty of sonic goodness to be heard all the way around in this film. The late great composer James Horner, his score sounds very clear and it fills in the stereo channels. Now the stereo mix is very nicely detailed and it never sounds shallow or flat, and it doesn't have any kind of age-related problems, no hisses, hums, or other things like that. So for the portion on the Blu-ray that includes Dad, I'm going to give the video a 3.5 out of a 5, for the audio a 4 out of a 5, and for the movie itself, like I said, it's one of my beloved movies. It's not a perfect movie, but it really hits me every time I see it. I'm going to give it a 4 out of a 5. Alright guys, now we're going to swing into I'm Not Rappaport, and honestly, I was not as familiar with this movie as I was with Dad. I mean, I've heard about it, but I never really saw it. It was released in 1996 and stars Walter Matthau and Ossie Davis. The movie revolves around Walter Matthau, who fondly remembers his glory days and Union battles. And now in his elderly years, he decides to take it upon himself to lead a grocery shopper's rebellion against the rich guys who own the stores and who continually raise prices. Figure that one out. When he meets Midge, played by Ossie Davis, and the two hit it off, becoming quick friends, talking up the good old days and the ways of the world, but their relationship ultimately leads them to a crusade to clean up the streets. We got old guys clean up the streets. Yeah. But honestly guys, this movie works mainly because of Ossie Davis and Walter Matthau's chemistry, which honestly makes a compelling story, along with director Herb Gardner's crafting a decent blend of comedy and drama and even some adventure. The biggest problem is with the film's length. At 2 hours and 15 minutes, it's just way too long, and it starts feeling its length and also starts feeling a little too generic at times, making it stale halfway through the second and definitely the third act. But I would say it's definitely well worth checking out, and it does have a good companion with it, Dad.
Blu-ray Review.
So I'm Not Rappaport does feature a really good, quite good video transfer. The video is very stable, maintaining a relatively light grain structure that's very natural looking. The picture is very sharp throughout. I did notice, however, a few spots and debris here and there, but overall the video is spotless with no age-related issues. As for the audio, I was a little disappointed by this audio mix. I was expecting more from it, being in the mid-90s, and the audio just feels very limited and not as aggressive as I would have liked. The dialogue does handle well though, and it comes in clear and decent. And there is some nice ambient sound effects along with the film score. It sounds decent. Overall, this audio mix really isn't much to write home about, but it's definitely a passable score. So for I'm Not Rappaport, I'm going to give the video a 4 out of a 5, the audio a 3 out of a 5. For the film itself, it's fine, it's enjoyable. I'm going to give it a 3 out of a 5. Well, obviously that's our review for Dad and I'm Not Rappaport, double featured Blu-ray disc from Millcreek. As always, I want to give thanks to Millcreek Entertainment for sending us this Blu-ray to review for you guys. And of course, most importantly, thank you to all you guys out there in this movie geekdom community. Remember, before you go, hit that like button and drop your comments down below. Let me know if you plan on picking up this Blu-ray, what your thoughts on Dad or I'm Not Rappaport. And once again, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.